I think that success is also a balance between humility and ambition. And the more that we give to other people, it's the more that we gain. My brother said, well, if you are as good as you think you are and you can raise enough money for private companies and governments, why we don't start raising money to ourselves in order to start a real estate company? There is no crisis that can withstand 14 hours of work, neither a job that can cover you 6 months of going to party. But sometimes saying no is something that we need to learn. Try to learn as much as you can every single day. Never stop learning.
All right, welcome back to the Quest for Success podcast, and thank you so much for tuning in once again. Today, we're incredibly excited to have on another one of the Harvard crew with us today.
Yeah, we have a very special guest today, Adrian Paez from Mexico. And Adrian is one of the popular OPM crew in our group. And it's a privilege to have this conversation with you, Adrian. I feel like I know you quite a lot, but I was telling Dylan, there's so much I feel like I don't really know about you. So it's an opportunity for me to kind of get to know in this conversation. And thanks for joining us.
No. Thank you so much, Yama. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I know that sometimes the language is a barrier. So if you don't understand me quite well, just please feel free to ask me again. If I am not clear going through this interview or this podcast, please let me know. Okay, so I'll try to do my best.
Absolutely.
Because I know that you speak some Spanish and you have learned a little bit of Spanish over the last 2 years, but not quite enough, Dylan, to have this podcast in Spanish. So I will try to do my best in English. Okay.
We appreciate that. We appreciate that. So, Adrian, this whole conversation is about success, right? And so, before we begin, we really need to set the scene and understand what success actually means to you. So, I'd like to start on that point. Can you tell us a bit about, from your perspective, what does success mean?
Oh, sure. It's a tough question, and there's a lot of perspectives going through the word success. But for me, over my last years, I think that success at the end of the day, it's a balance in life. So it's very important. And what the success, and I know that a lot of people will always answer that success is not about money, and I think that they're correct. But I'm not focusing this conversation in monetary terms. So what do I mean by balance? By balance, Dylan and Jam, I always have 5 words in my dictionary. Okay, it's my spiritual life, it's my family, it's my social life, it's my health, and it's my work. So imagine that you have a pie chart and you have 5 items with 20% in each of those. If you do a lot of work and you're in problem work at 40, 50%, you're taking away something of the other 4 items that I mentioned. So having this balance between these 5 important elements that have been my pillars in my life, I think that that's what success it's all about. Now, there's another definition that I like to call about success, and I think that success it's also a balance between humility and ambition. Okay, and it's a different perspective to look at it, but it's how do we resonate with the persons that we care, and how can we encourage them, and how can we try to lead them to become better persons? And the more that we give to other people, it's the more that we gain. So that's what I mean by combining humility and ambition. It's trying to be the best that you can, always trying to help others, putting aside yourself. So that would be a second item. And the third item that I really love is that at the end of the day, success, it's a continuous journey of improving yourself. And what do I mean by improving ourselves or myself? It's to try to help everybody around you, setting aside material things. So more or less, that's the way that I envision success. I don't know if there's a question or something that you want to add on.
No, I think that's a very holistic definition of success, and I like how you've kind of split it up that way, and also spoken about, you know, having humility and balancing that with ambition to build a successful life. But I suppose before we kind of dive into this whole conversation, for me especially, and for the listeners who don't know you, can you give us a very high level introduction as to who you are and what you do currently?
Oh, sure. Uh, I was born and raised in Monterrey, Mexico. And if I get too boring on my story, you just tell me, Dylan, just skip ahead and we'll continue moving forward. No, but I was born and raised in Mexico City, in Monterrey, Mexico, I'm sorry. Monterrey, it's a big industrial city, around 5 million people in the northern part of Mexico, close to the border of the US to the Texas border. And I studied industrial engineering in Monterrey Institute of Technology, which is an important university based in Mexico. And then I graduated, and it has been quite a journey. I started working for a cement company. I don't know, I mean, you're familiar with Rinker Cement, which was an Australian company, which was acquired by a Mexican company called Cemex. So
Okay.
I joined the leadership program in this company called Cemex or Cemex, Cementos Mexicanos, prior to trying to go to an MBA program, and we will get to that later in this conversation, which is, I think it's very important. And I started working in a cement factory, taking shifts, 12-hour shifts or 8-hour shifts during the day, during the night, or during the afternoon. And I became some sort of a knowledgeable guy in terms of cement production. And it is a boring industry back in the days, not listed in NASDAQ, not sexy in terms of financial things, heavy asset company. And for some reason, during back in the days, Cemex was being listed at the New York Stock Exchange through a complex program through Citibank. It was quite a journey. And the cement analysts of the industry from the big companies like Goldman Sachs and Salomon Smith Barney used to be there in those days, send their analysts to analyze what was going on with this company because it didn't make sense to have all those billions of dollars in assets. People were confused what was cement and what was ready mix concrete, right? So ready mix, it's the concrete that you know. Cement, it's one of the components in this production. So I started having a great relationship with those financial analysts. And someday I get a call from the corporate headquarters from the financial side of the company and said, are you Adrian? I said, yes, I am Adrian. So I heard that you have been the one that is taking care of our industries analyst on the plant. I said, yes. So we would like to interview you. So I came back in the day with one of the people that used to report to the CFO of the company. So they invited me to get out of the plant and being a person on shift to join the headquarters and join the financial structure of the company. So I started as a analyst down there. It was a great experience. Then I had the opportunity to live in New York for a couple of years. And then after that, I started moving ranks. And one day, Cemex started to do some acquisitions throughout the world. And I had the opportunity at a very young age to analyze those companies and to hear all my bosses and peers what was going on through the cement industry in the world. So there was a small boutique firm in Monterrey that used to have a lot of stock out of Cemex, and they needed to have the approval of this small boutique investment bank. So the name of that company was called Value. So one day I went to the CEO of Value. His name was Carlos Bremer. He passed away a year ago. He was my boss, a fantastic person. And he said, "You're losing your time working in a cement company." I said, "Well, it's not a cement company, it's a technology company. We were trying to sell everything that had a .com during those days, right?" So
Yeah.
he said, "You should come and work for me." So I decided to leave Cemex. It was a tough decision. My parents back on that day thought that I was crazy. My wife thought that I was crazy. I mean, you're talking about one of the most important companies in Mexico. And I was going to a small boutique investment firm. And they said, "Well, if that's what you want to do, go ahead." So I started down there and we started doing a lot of private banking. And I'm talking early 2000s, around 2002, 2003, and there were a lot of Mexican corporations that used to have debt in dollar terms. Interest rates were decreasing in Mexico, so it was a great opportunity to raise debt in Mexico, to pay debt in the US, and have your debt in Mexican pesos. So we started
Mm-hmm.
doing that. I remember that I did the first transaction in Monterrey many years ago for a hotel firm. It was not a lot of money, but back on those days, I was restructuring the Mexican debt. So I almost lost my job after saying I will do that. So I started working on the private banking side. So I have a lot of experience financial wise uh, between government debt and corporate debt. And then once you think that your life is set up, and I will get to success and resilience, my father used to work and own a small percentage of a insurance company based in Monterrey. And it was a small company that was acquired in the late 80s. It became one of the most successful insurance companies in Latin America. And later it was sold, but we will get to that point. So going through that, uh, my father had a mental illness, some sort of Alzheimer, which is a frontotemporal
Uh-huh.
dementia. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in order for him to feel better, we used to have a small place at the beach in Texas called South Padre Island, which is a very small town in the Gulf of Mexico. So I used to travel a lot to South Padre with my younger brother uh, to see every now and then my parents, no? And after that, I said during the weekends there was a lot of time that we were not doing nothing. I said, well, we should start doing some building or build a house and sell it, or like a hobby, right? So we started with a small condominium complex, 10, 12 units during those days. I said we should acquire this land, build some condominiums, and sell them to people in Monterrey. So we started as a hobby doing that. And then my brother said, well, if you are as good as you think you are and you can raise enough money for private companies and governments, why we don't start raising money to ourselves in order to start a real estate company? So we started in 2001 or 2002. So I started in the financial side and the investor relations side. During those days, there were very small projects. I was used to work in investment banking, so there were millions going from there to there, and here we were talking about probably not tens of thousands of dollars, but very very small amounts. And we started the company, and that's why we started. We started because of my father's illness. So he was
Mm-hmm.
always a person that we look up to him. He inspires us a lot to become individual entrepreneurs. Later, the insurance company, which was part of my plan to work on that, was sold to a group out of Netherlands called ING.
Oh, yeah.
And since 23 or 22 years ago, we started our own business, which is a real estate development company. We have operations in Mexico and in the US. In the US, basically in the state of Texas, in Mexico through different cities. And we have offices in different parts of Mexico, as well as Houston and South Padre. So that's more or less my background. I'm a real estate developer. My background was from finance. And that's what we do right now. And actually, my job is my passion, and it's something that I really, really, really enjoy, building out of nothing, creating communities, and we will get to that point, no?
That's an awesome story, Adrian. You're still involved with your brother in this
Yes,
business?
100%. Yes, 100%. It's my younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me, and it's quite an experience because I was born the 22nd of October and he was born the 21st of October. So there's one day every single year that the age difference is just 1 year, and then the next day 2 years. And my brother, it's and my brother, it's my best friend. He's my business partner, and he's my compadre, like we say in Mexico. I am the godfather of their daughters, and he is the godfather of my son. So it's a very, very strong, tight relation.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to jump on quickly and say a massive thank you for all of the support so far. But I also wanted to ask a favor of you guys. We want this podcast to reach as many people as possible so that we can share all of the incredible learnings that we've had so far. But in order for us to do that, we need to grow our following to beat the algorithms. But the good news is, however, there is one simple thing that you can do to help us reach that goal. So I ask you if you could please follow or subscribe to us on whatever channel you're listening to this on. It'll help us grow the channel, which means we can get on bigger and better guests for you guys. And with that, back to the episode. And looking back, like on your early years, and what do you think you got from your parents? Like what traits do you think you developed because of your early life?
I think I would mention two or three, but one of them for sure it's integrity. And I think that without being honest to yourself and to others, it's very difficult to keep moving forward. The other one was humility. My father used to say, always keep your feet on the ground and your eyes looking at the sky. So
Mhm.
that is one of the premises that we have learned through life. And then another thing, it's being ambitious is not bad, but the problem is when you forget everything around you to start to focus on something that has a monetary end of it. And once if you lose
Mhm.
that track, just focusing on that, it is dangerous because eventually you will derail yourself of the mission that you want to accomplish. So those three things I think were very important. Also, my mother was very hard on us in terms of getting our studies done. She was very strict. That was probably now at 30 years later, since I don't have a mother living at my place, being all around me, I have more free time to enjoy with my wife. But we were learned that it used to make a lot of fun. In Mexico, there's a saying that is, there is no crisis that can withstand 14 hours of work, neither a job that can cover you 6 months of going to party. So, so that was very, very important for us. And I think the core values of the family, the foundation, and the moving forward and learning from every mistake you make. And we don't call them mistakes, we call them learning exercises. Because at the end of the day, uh, you keep improving yourself, and that was something that was very, very well thought from my parents. My father passed away 6 years ago in 2018. This disease, they told us that it was going to be no more than 8 years, his life expectancy. We have the opportunity to have him 17 years, so that was also a thought that if you keep fighting, you can overcome whatever probability there is. And my mother, she still lives, and we listen to her. She is also an investor of some of our projects, and we treat her always as a mother. But in terms of investment wise, he sometimes is invited to different boards, and we try to keep her as active as much as we can in order for her to feel that she needs to be part of something, right? I always say that the day I stop working is the day that I will die. So there will be
That's
plenty
right.
of time to rest once we're at the grave, right?
I totally agree. So, Adrian, you talked about your mom and dad a bit, but what was your childhood like when like a young Adrian? What was the kind of your growing up in a family, with one brother, and you had any other siblings, and what was like when you're a child?
I think it was a fantastic childhood. Both of my parents work when we were very young. We helped them a lot in different things, and we used to have a very happy life in terms that we travel a lot together. We did a lot of sports together with my father. We used to drive dirt bikes in the mountains close to Monterrey, and always trying to be a very, very healthy life. And then with my mother, we used to snow ski because she really liked to go snow skiing. So there were times that we used to work and sacrifice a lot when we were younger. But then moving up forward, we have the opportunity to grow together as a family. And that helped us a lot to strengthen our bundles and growing up together. So when we talk about effort, when we talk about friendship, when we talk about the important thing that the family is, that nucleus came quite strong since we were very, very young. And our grandparents also used to live and used to be a lot in touch with us. So we were a very, very close family. And in Mexico, the family issue, it's quite a strong bond. So everything that we learned was throughout helping each other and try to become a better person all together as a family and try to be as equal as possible so we don't create that disruption between brothers or between uncles and working all hard together to achieve a same goal.
And
Okay.
in terms of like entrepreneurship, were you always an entrepreneur? Like even when you were young, were you doing
Oh,
little entrepreneurial things, or is it something that came later?
no, Dylan. I always had that on my mind. It was just a matter of timing, right? And when I started to work with Cemex, and I'll go back to my childhood. Uh,
Yeah.
it was because I just got married. I got married at I was 25. My wife, she was 24. Actually, I married my second cousin. So
Oh wow.
my father-in-law and my mother are first cousins. So our grandparents are brothers. So
Nice.
it's a quite interesting story, and I will need to take a whole diagram to explain you who is where and what. But so I started working on that because that was the way that I feel secured of having a home and having a decent life with my wife, and moving forward was part of an execution plan before I went independent as an entrepreneur at the age probably of 27 or 28. But going backwards, a couple of things that we used to do, my brother and myself, which is we always work together. We love everything that it's involved with audio and video. And back in the days, we were very passionate about car audio systems.
Uh-huh.
So in the garage of my parents, all my friends that used to have these fancy speakers and so on and so forth, uh, we were the ones that installed those audio systems. So by doing that, I have some money to buy my own audio system because they were very strict in different terms. So we started with that, And then we started to do some advisory in home audio entertainment.
Oh, wow.
So when we started doing the buildings in South Padre, we used to sell the TVs and all the audio equipment to our same clients, and it was like a side off, like a side business that we used to have. Even though that our investors knew that we were doing that because we were always very transparent. But
Yep.
sometimes our investors make fun of us because of selling expensive speakers and expensive TVs back in the days was probably more profitable for us than running an organization to do some brick and mortar, right? And then and going backwards, also on that, we used to have a small mechanic shop to fix motorcycles. So everything that was involved with engines and with audio, we were always on top of that. And we used to learn a lot of self-studying. We didn't have the internet, but we have different magazines. So we were quite lecture going on that. And then prior to that, probably my first business, I was probably 12 years old. Uh, there was in Mexico like a new fashion to have a paintball guns. I don't know if you're familiar with paintball guns, the one with the
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
pellets. And
Yep.
they didn't sell pellets in Mexico. So what we did is we used to have a small place, a PO box. I'm sorry, in McAllen, Texas. So we bought a lot of paintballs with some equity that our dad gave us to start the business, right? And then we started importing the pellets for the paintballs and sell them in my place at my house.
Wow.
So we used to have a lot of fun doing that, and that's what I learned the term that sales are not the same as net profit, right? Because we saw, we saw the paintballs and we were very happy. I said, "Well, Dad, thank you so much." I said, "Well, give me back my money." I said, "We don't have your money anymore. We already spent it, right?" I said, "Well, you need to give back whatever you took the investment in order to going on the same." So that's the hard way to learn how business is done nowadays, no?
Yeah, yeah. So with that was when you're only 12 years old. Wow.
Yes, yeah, it was 12 years old, and then audio and video, and then car audio systems at the age of 16 or 17, no, 16, and then the mechanical shop at the age of 18, and everything was always to try to do something different and to try to whatever was not given to us, which was part of our education, we will always find a way to try to achieve that. So if it was selling paintballs or going into the mechanical shop or installing audio and video systems, there was always a way that we figure out how to try to achieve what we wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, Adrian, you use that V word. So have you done all this business with your brother?
Uh, yes, the ones that I talked to you before, I did all of those with him. And then we took different paths because I graduated, and during that day, college was for him 1 year more. So we graduated like 3 years apart. So when I was in the small boutique investment, which my brother used to take care of my parents, that's why when we started working together, even though I continued to be in the investment banking firm, and then that's why when we decided to join together. So every day since we were born, we have been tied up together. I will send you pictures, unbelievable pictures of doing small businesses since we were 10 and 12 or 12 and 14.
That would be
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, how did your parents? How did you so close to each other? I know. I mean, siblings are normally close, but sometimes you have also rivalries, right? Like you don't get
Yeah.
along very well, But you guys seems like you had a from the childhood to even now, like you are very close together. Is that how that happened? Your parents help you to become so too
Uh,
close?
yeah, I think that our parents were a lot involved on that because they always told us siempre juntos, which always meant always together. And then I think that and in Monterey, in my hometown, the Paez brothers are very
All
well
right.
known for the strong relationship that we have between brothers. But I think that the what gets us along together, Jam and Dylan, is that we are completely the opposite.
All right.
So so if you look at my brother, you cannot give me a checking account with $100 on it because I will overpay them. I don't have any idea of how to administrate, and he is extremely well organized on that term. And on the other side, I try to push him a lot in taking decisions that for him think sometimes that I am crazy. But the way that we complement each other, it's something that really get us together.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
And in terms of, I suppose you mentioned early on balancing humility and ambition. I kind of want to dive into that a bit more. And how do you go about achieving that?
Well, I think that most of the time, Dilana, we want to achieve certain goals in terms of your company, right? And you are driven by trying to grow the company. And I'm going to talk about that 20%, which is work. You know, we started about those five things, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
doesn't
That would
mean
be a
that
list.
will not interfere with the spiritual with the spiritual thing, with the social, with the health, and with the family. But talking about work and ambition and humbleness is much of the time we try to push an organization moving forward as much as we can, thinking that everybody thinks the way we do. And if you don't have that empathy and that humility to understand people moving forward, it's difficult to achieve that success. So you need to make the people that your team to be feel to feel part of the company. And much of the time people forget that. And if you don't have that sense of humility and empathy on putting on your team's shoes what they think, what are their problems, what is happening back at their home, you cannot drive that ambition if you don't have that. It would be impossible to reach the goal. So that's why in terms of business, when we talk about success, it's a balance between all the ambition and moving forward with the company, with the humbleness and the humility to understand people, to try to everybody drive them into one same direction. And that's what I think about, that balance between moving forward and being another one's and being in your peers' shoes, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really like profound way to put it. You need to look after the people around you to help kind of move towards that goal. I think that's an excellent way to put it. And in terms of, you split your life up into those pillars. So that's kind of the business pillar. How do you go about managing? You're clearly very successful in the business realm. How do you go about managing the other pillars of your life as well? Because time is limited. How do you do that?
Well, sometimes, and I used to joke back in HBS that sometimes say no is something that we need to learn. And I used to read a book that say how to say no and still save the deal. So you need to understand, and you need to be mature enough that saying no is not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to have that pillars, like you were saying, I have learned through life to say no, because for me it is impossible, and it was impossible, and still as of today, saying no. I would rather split in five or six and try to make everyone feel comfortable and try to go to every plan. But there's a time that if you don't get to say no, eventually you will get a you will you will not be able to attend or to fulfill another person's shoes. So if it's family time, you always have a friend call you to invite you to some place. You say no. I said, today it's family. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for considering me, but today it's impossible. And the other way, if you have plans with your friends or a trip with your friends and a family thing comes by, I said, family, I told you this was my time social wise. And I need to tell you this time, no. So learning to say no in a positive way can help you a lot, Dylan. Try to work on those different pillars. And it took me a lot, and still
Yeah,
it's very
yeah,
difficult for me. But I try to every now and then practicing saying no and try to have as much order in the pillars as I can, because other than that, it would be impossible.
yeah. I guess Adrian, it's all about how you prioritize things as well, right? So something that we learn at HBS, to prioritize or give priority to three things in this order: family, and sorry, you first. You is always first, and then the family second, and then the work third, right? So it's easy to say, hey, we can say no, but when it's come to prioritize things, it's more we kind of ignore us, right? And then we go always other way around, right? Like work comes first, family comes second, and you last.
And you
Like,
come,
so
yeah.
how can we? It's a hard
Yes,
one. Yeah.
it is, and I totally understand you, Jam, and you're completely right. And then we need to learn every single day that in order for us to serve others, we need to be within peace with ourselves. So if we don't have our time and if we don't have our mind clear, how can we transmit moving forward something that we haven't been able to achieve as a person?
Yeah.
So I totally agree on that. But on the other part, and I know that you will understand me, and for sure, Dylan, is you always try to give more than what you are able to give. And that's very important because that's self-satisfying, even if it means sacrificing yourself for others. That not that doesn't necessarily means, Jam, that you
Hmm.
are not good within yourself.
Hmm.
Probably being good within yourself is giving more that you can give. Well, as long as that keeps you correct as a person and moving forward, that's a way for you to feel okay, right? So I think that's very important in terms of family, in terms of organization, in terms of business. Moving forward, you need to transmit that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Sometimes we don't realize we have so much capacity that we can give more. We can balance. If we can really put our mind to it, and we can give that time to everybody. And if you really focus, I totally agree with you. So, Adrian, I still feel like there's a lot more about you, right? Like I know during like in Harvard, like everyone, right? All the Mexicans, all the South Americans, like all talk about you, like like we look up to you. Like I feel like there's some you have a great charisma, like a kind of as a person, like a leader, right? So I know you're associated with so many other organizations, etc. Like and you're doing a lot apart from your business. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, but yes, a part of my business, I form part of different organizations. I'm a board member of different companies, energy companies, health sector companies. But let me tell you something that if I have the opportunity, do I have 5 minutes to go through this because I think it's important?
Please.
Okay, so aside of that, when I went back to back to Monterey after HBS on the first session 2 years ago, my political family, which is also my family, uh, has a very big low income university, and I decided to become a teacher.
Uh-huh.
So on my extracurricular activities as board member or as partner of other institutions, for me this has been the greatest reward of all. So I noticed that some of the persons at my organization on the lower levels, most of them studied architecture in this university called Metropolitan University of Monterrey. So I designed a program for the university. It took me 2 years, and with people from my organization that studied in that university. So we created some sort of entrepreneurial uh, course within the university called the Audace, which stands for Audacity. And with the same people of my organization, we designed the whole program. We designed the logo, we designed the name, and then we went up to the university to implement this course. And obviously, it was completely free. I
Mhm.
went to have a very nice talk at the auditorium to invite people. So I ended up having a lot of requests to want to join the program, but I didn't have time. So I chose 25 out of 450 people that applied it. So I took these 25 fantastic persons with all different sort of studies. One were studying engineers, other ones architects, other ones are studying law. Even though I have faculty that want to join the program, so it's a 2 year program called Audacity or Audace. And then what I did is try to all that fancy language that we use in all those universities. How can you lower that language in something more practical for people to understand it, right? So let's say that there was a small entrepreneur, amazing story, and he decided that it was very difficult if someone dies uh, to hire all these things that you need to do in order to incinerate the body and so on and so forth. So we came up with an idea which is called Eternia, which is from eternity. So I went to the
Mhm.
government. We land lease a big forest for the next 90 years. We started doing some benches and a beautiful park within that forest. And then if someone of your relatives die and you don't have the money to go to all these funeral services, we will help you to incinerate, and then you will choose a tree within this forest. And then you will have in the forest a small plaque on it, which with a QR code you can see all his family. And then every Sunday, people go and visit their relative. Instead of going to a grave or going to all these horrible places, you go to a forest and be part of the forest and have a picnic with your grandfather, which is represented by a tree. So all sort of these companies or activities started to came out of the program. So then I said, I need to take
Love
it
it.
forward, Jam. So what we did is that a private fund committed with me that all of these ideas, we will create a business plan from A to Z, going through the mission, the vision, the value, all the 2x2s that you know, right? And then having, Dylan, all the financials to have a complete business case. And we presented that business case to a private equity firm. And you're talking about very small quantities that can change the opportunity of a family for a lifetime. I mean, you are not talking about millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's quite simple. I mean, it's a X amount. I never like to talk about money, but it's very low investment that you need to make. You partner up with them, and it's
Yep.
amazing how can you create a substantial change. So out of those extracurricular activities, for me, the Audacity program, for me, it's a game changer. I mean, it's something that I really put my effort on it, put my time on it, and then I take my students to visit different enterprises, different businesses. It's amazing.
I love that story. I mean, when can we roll this out to Australia?
If you tell me when, boss, it would be a pleasure.
Yeah, love to be part of it. It's amazing story, and I'm just thinking that tree story, like that's amazing, right? Because your legacy will continue, right? Like yeah, it's just a amazing idea.
Yes,
Yeah,
and I have a lot of examples like that one. There was another person that I was amazed that sold his car in order to help an uncle, and he borrowed money. He didn't know 2 or 3 years later he have a big financial institution. He just needed some equity, some order, a very simple software to create this, and he was helping his community, but he didn't know actually how much he has borrowed. So we started saying we need to institutionalize this firm. So there are a lot of examples that I can give you, but it has been quite a
yeah,
journey on
yeah,
my extracurricular activities.
yeah, amazing.
And what do you think is the limiting factor for most people as to why they don't go out and take this risk and do these entrepreneurial ventures?
Oh, Dylan, I think it's a fantastic question. Yeah, first of all, Mexico, it's not as easy as Australia or other countries uh, in terms of having the equity to achieve those goals. The ideas are there, but not the money. But I think aside of the money, it's that most of them have not found a tutor or someone that can mentor them in order to create a document that it's in order to try to sell the idea. So I think that there is a lot of ideas. The thing is how we structure those ideas and how can we approach a private equity firm that has this a social aspect on it. Because this fund, even though they want to create money, but it's not the typical venture capitalist looking at what is going to be how many X's and moving forward and round A and round B and round C. It's how can I push these people to give them a completely switch or shift to their lives, right? And then the sub product, it's probably that you will end up making money. But but at the end of the day, Dylan, the idea was to try to help someone, and the sub product is making money. Well, that is fantastic. It's like going to a charity foundation, donate something, you feel good about it, charity is doing great, and probably you will make a profit out of it. Where do I sign on it, right? So instead of being on all
Absolutely.
these fancy dinner galas, right? Pushing the ballet from Switzerland, which doesn't make any sense. They don't need any money at all. To look
Yeah,
at the Nutcracker in Monterrey, Mexico, in a fancy auditorium, everybody wearing tuxedo. Let's go help these guys, right?
absolutely. Amazing thing what you're doing, Adrian. Yeah, yeah.
And there you mentioned the piece on mentorship, right? A lot of these people just haven't had the mentor or the teacher in their life to kind of show them the way. Has there been any mentors for you that have helped
Uh,
you along
uh,
your journey?
yes, by far. On the, I think for sure, in terms of work, one of my mentors was a person from Syria. His name is Maher Al Jafar. He was an investment banker from Citibank, and he pushed me way beyond my limits. So on that type of work and of knowledge, uh, Maher was a big important factor. And then Carlos Bremer, which was a very close friend that I used to work with him. I was also a partner in the small firm boutique company. And then my parents, by far on the social side, not meaning social in terms of friendship, but in humbleness to never leave your feet off the ground. But I think that you can have a mentor for different aspects of your life, not necessarily uh, uh, for a whole uh, uh, for a whole life, but a different points in life, there are some people that you need to hear, or some people that might appear, right? So
That's right.
I try to always
Yeah.
pay attention and say, well, this might sound interesting. And there's a couple of parents of very close friends of mine that when my father passed away, they were always there, and not necessarily with equity or not necessarily with a solution to a problem, but always with the willingness to hear you and to try to give you something. My grandfather, Manuel Garza Madero, was a fantastic person on that. And even though he was very hard on us, uh, he always said, you are hearing an advice from someone who'd rather be dead than to try to tell you something wrong. So those types of persons can make an impact on your life. And it's important to always be open and hearing those statements, right? Because most of the time they can cross just in front of you and you didn't have the ability or the capacity to hear them because you were in another place. So always try to stay focused depending on where you are, no?
So one of the key part of your balance that you're talking about success is family, right? And
Yes.
I met your two boys at the
Yes.
graduation,
Yes.
and so please take us through your family. You have two children.
I have a four actually.
Oh, sorry.
It's you. Yes, you met Adrian and Juan Diego. Juan Diego was
Okay.
a day earlier. You remember, and then Adrian came with my wife. Adrian is
Yeah.
22 years old. He's studying architecture. He was studying architecture in London. Right now, he's in Monterrey. And then Juan Diego, my second son, he's studying industrial engineer at the same university that I went to. He is 21 years old. And then Maka, my oldest
Yeah.
daughter, she is 20 years old. So I have 22, 21, and 20. She's studying law. And then the
Wow.
little one, Carola, she is 17. She's on high school, going to college next year, and she wants to study psychology. And as a family, we try to be as close as we can. So even though some of them travel now and then, but there's always either Wednesday or Thursday on every week and going and learning how to say no. I don't care if Taylor Swift is going to Monterrey or whoever is going to Monterrey on that day. If it's Thursday and it's family time, it's family time. So we travel every now and then. We try to make a trip during the holidays, and we're always very close, trying to help each other. And for me, it would be fantastic if my sons have the same relationship that I had with my brother, like you were mentioned before. And I really think that my wife and myself are trying to achieve that, and I think we are heading in the right direction. I mean, we always try to go in the right direction, but it's never taken for granted. So we continue working on a day by day basis for them.
That's awesome. If you have to give one advice to your children, or in this case to Dylan, what would be that advice, Adrian?
Wow, that's a tough question.
I know. Sorry, you might have so many things that you can probably um, share with Dylan and all the kids.
Yes, sure, and it would be a pleasure, Dylan, to share that. But and I'm trying to give some sort of advice that really gets in your heart, and you remember Adrian, your father's friend, not the typical thinking that work hard, play hard, and pray hard, or whatever, but it's, all those things that we can listen. But two things, and I will repeat myself on this one because I think that you will learn a lot from it. The first one, Dylan, and I will tell you again, there is no crisis that can withstand 14 hours of work, not a career that can survive 6 months of going to party. So whenever things are not heading your way, things will pass, and then you will look back and you will laugh at those. So when those things are going not the way that you expected, don't feel frustrated. Try to learn as much as you can in order to avoid stepping the next step, the next stone ahead. And I think that's very important. And always surround with people that have your same values, and try to learn as much as you can every single day. Never stop learning. And that's probably why uh, your father and myself at our age, we went back to school. And I didn't
Mhm.
have the opportunity to go to graduate school because at that time when I was switching jobs, that's when my father got that illness. I was accepted to a fantastic MBA program. I couldn't do it. But I always set on my mind a goal and forget about time. It's try to achieve it. It can be now, it can be 10 years, or it can be as myself, it took me 20 years to get back to college, right? Do I regret
Mhm.
myself? Not a single word that I have said. So HBS has been also a fantastic journey, having the opportunity to meet your father, to get to know him, to interact different ideas. And another important thing, Dylan, and you're going to like this, it's there is never a bad idea. It's how those ideas you can turn them into knowledge. So listen
I
and
like
then
that.
make your assessment to you as a person, right? And before we start, well, that's a crazy idea. Listen, and those ideas, assess them and turn them into knowledge, because for sure that bad idea will help you something to achieve, if it's not today, later than tomorrow.
Hmm. I think
That's
that's some excellent advice.
that's really good, really good. Um, Adrian, one more thing. You mentioned something that you want to share with us about your MBA story. I don't want
Oh,
to miss
so
anything. I want to, yeah.
no. No, I was accepted to the program, and then I couldn't make it because my father went to have his illness. And then when he started, it's a great story. I couldn't make it because I pretended to be my father for 2 years. so so imagine this. There was an acquisition between a Mexican company and a holding company. Okay, my father was in his first stages of this Alzheimer disease, which was called Marcel Mesulam. It's called Marcel Mesulam because it was diagnosed by an Indian doctor. Fantastic. I had the
Okay.
opportunity to meet Dr. Mesulam. Uh, Actually, it was in the psychiatric hospital at the McLean Psychiatric Center in Harvard University. Strange how things go back and forth, because the last place that I wanted to get back in my life was Harvard, right? And that's why I
Yeah.
ended
Yeah.
up 24 years or 20 years later, or whatever. So he was completely good on his head, but the Marcel Mesulam syndrome, Jam, the first that it affects is not the short memory loss, but it's you forget how to speak. So during those board meetings and during the transactions, my father couldn't speak anymore.
Wow.
So they told me, Adrian, you speak most like your father, and if you're on a conference phone, there were no Zooms. It was everything a conference call. Like you remember, I'm talking about late 1990s, early 2000s. So
Wow. So young
my
Adrian.
father, yeah. So she used to write everything that I needed to say. So I pretended to be him during those conferences. So it took us 2 years
Amazing.
during the transaction, and that's why I didn't went ever to to my MBA program. So can
Wow.
you imagine? I was 24 years going to this multinational transaction. It was a big transaction during those days. And I had the opportunity to be with all these senior managers from different parts and the investment bankers representing the Mexican company selling to a Holland company. So that was quite an opportunity. And then, do I regret anything? Nothing. Do I miss my father? Of course I miss him. Do I learn from him? By far. Should I have the opportunity to live the same again? I would say 100% yes. Because those
Amazing.
experiences create the persons that we are, all of us today.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Adrian, I suppose looking back on your journey, do you feel successful?
I think that there's a lot that I need to achieve going forward. But at this point in time, I feel calm with myself. I feel that on all the 5 pillars that we went through, as of today, I don't know tomorrow, all of them are in order. There are a lot of things to do moving forward. Yes, they are. Do I feel successful? Yes, I do feel successful. But that doesn't mean that I don't want to continue pushing and moving forward in all the 5 aspects that we went through it, because there are plenty of things to do with the organization, with the family, with your friends, with your community, with your local government. In terms of our country, we have been facing a lot of poverty. So we need to work also on that, because I always say, if the boat sinks, Dylan, even though you are on a cruise ship on the 14th floor, you're going to go right into the water. So it doesn't matter
Yep.
if you're
Yep.
on the first floor or in the 14th floor. So we need to take care of the cruise ship, right?
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
That's a really nice philosophy. And I mean, Adrian, we could talk for hours, but I think we should wrap up the conversation there. And while we've been speaking, I've been jotting down a few things which I think have been factors which have contributed to your success. And by factors, I mean internal traits. And so I think the first one is you're very family oriented. And I think that's, part of the culture that you've grown up in. But I think having that core family belief and like core connection is something that's helped you, because you always have people around you it's like a strong support network. And I think it's also, as you said, you split your life into many facets, and having those different facets, family being one, it allows you to live a lot more balanced life, which was your definition of success, having a balanced life. The second one is you're a go-getter. You throughout our conversation, you've done so many different things. You just go and you try all different things, whether it's from small adventures when you were young to just off the bat of being with your family and starting a real estate and construction conglomerate. I think you take an idea and you run with it and take action, I suppose is the key thing there. And then the third one is humility. You've done some incredible things, but you still manage to stay super grounded and respect your beginnings and the people around you who maybe aren't as fortunate as you've been. And I think that's a really core thing. And I really loved that you framed it, balancing humility and ambition, because I think that's something that today is becoming a lot rarer. Everyone's chasing the
Yes.
ambition, but we're forgetting about the humility aspect and understanding that we all have different stories and all different paths as well. And then the last one I have is you have the give back mentality. And I think that's really clear
100%.
throughout the things that you're doing outside of your business as well, through the program, the Audacity program that you're running. I think that's an incredible organization. And it's about you can see yourself in a privileged position. You've got to experience the things that you have and learn from some incredible institutes. And now you're trying to give that knowledge back to people who are less fortunate than you and raise everyone up and reinforce the hull of that cruise ship. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, just to add to that, Dylan, giving back, Adrian. I mean, I know you, for a while now. So I know that give back mentality. Even you proved that today when I asked that question, what can you advise, to Dylan? And you didn't, I mean, anyone could give some advice. We always have a lot of advice, but you actually thought harder to give him something meaningful. So it's not like just giving. Yeah, just giving a sake of giving. It's more like meaningful giving. And you've proven that, over the last 2 years that I know you, like you're very, very, every discussion that we have, it's very meaningful. You wanted to give everything inside, not just limiting yourself. So that adds to another trait that I see. You're a very, very authentic person. What you see, what you get. And you're the best dressed person in the room, in the class. Always like, we really like you, but then you're really, really authentic and very genuine, very, very genuine, like with everything that you do. That's why I guess that's the reason everyone really look up to you, and everyone can really, you connect with everyone, So I build a great relationship with you. And I truly appreciate your friendship as well, Adrian. So thank you so much for joining us today.
No. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much, Dylan. For me, it's a pleasure and a privilege, and you can always count on me, Dylan. If there's anything you need, an advisor someone that will never wish you harm, please feel free to contact me. And I was so glad that you consider me into this fantastic podcast. And like your father says always, Dylan, get on the bus, okay?
Thank you so much, Adrian. We really appreciate
You're
your time
welcome.
coming on the show today. And with that, we'll wrap up. If you've enjoyed listening to this episode and you found something useful out of it, please consider subscribing or following us on whichever platform you're listening to this on right now. And if you want to see more inspiring episodes, you can see all of our conversations over on our website, thequestforsuccesspodcast.com. And with that, we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.